This is the OoTPC. We are Order of Tier. This is the 9th episode of this incarnation of the OoTPC. I am the Game Mage, and joining me across the inner tubes is that man, Mike the Hammer K. Klodzinski. How are you doing tonight, Michael?
I am fantastic. How are you doing?
I am most excellent. Most excellent.
Excellence is good.
Yes, it very much so is. And we've got some topics to speak about tonight on this edition of Podcastery in which we are partaking currently. So, we've got a couple topics, and I think we should just dive right in. What do you say, Mr. HK?
I support this decision, GM.
Okay, so the way that this is going to go is we are going to talk about something that I despise, and I understand the reasons for it exist. I understand some of the reasons for it existing.
Yep.
I don't understand all of them, and I don't agree with many of them. And actually, I don't agree with all of them because I don't like this thing. This thing is called region locking, and region locking is when a piece of hardware or software or both is set up with properties such that if it's played outside of the region that it's sold in, or attempted to be played or used or consumed outside of the region that it's sold in, it just does not work. That could be for many different reasons. It could be a technical limitation for the hardware device cannot play the software or what have you because it just can't read it because there are differences in implementation in the regions. Or it could just be a no-no chip that checks to see if this disc or this game is made for the region that this console or this other device is made for. So there are, like I said, a vast number of reasons why this would be the case. And I think it bears us discussing what our thoughts are on region locking. I've kind of poisoned the well a little bit by kind of speaking a little bit how I feel about it. But Mike, do you want to give a first opinion here?
Yeah, sure. This is another one of those things that I've just kind of grown up with and never really thought about it until a few years ago when I started really getting serious about game collecting. And I have a Famicom and a Super Famicom. And a Japanese Sega Saturn.
Nice.
And it was interesting to me to find out that you can actually play like a Super Famicom game on a Super Nintendo if the cartridge slot is modified, and then vice versa. So that that speaks to like the hardware kind of region locking, and then with something like the Saturn, you would need to either do a boot swap, which you would put in an American disc, and then you'd have to. There's a little thing that you like a little pin that you can put a screw in or something on the inside of the console that when you open the disk drive, it doesn't, tell the console that it's open. It just keeps spinning. And I can't believe I did this back in the day. I would never do this now, but you put an American disc in, boot the game, and then you have to pull the disc out while the motor is still spinning the disc, which that's great, and then put the Japanese disc in. And actually, I think the Saturn was one that you had to do this twice. It actually like authenticates it twice, so you had to put the US disc in and then swap it for the Japanese disc and then swap it back to the US disc and then swap it back to the Japanese disc or something like that. Or maybe it was you put the Japanese disc in first and then do something back and forth. Either way, it was really complicated. But anyway, I just whenever I think of regional locking, I just think of that kind of stuff. And then, like now it's becoming interesting because there are talks of that going away. I don't know. Do you know if any of the current gen consoles are region free?
Oh, I thought you were going to say a region locked. I'm like, yeah? Not that I know of.
I can't remember if it was now or like the next generation somebody was talking about it. I don't
I've
know.
not actually researched the topic on current gen consoles, other than the fact of knowing that, or at least I'm pretty certain the Wii U is region locked, and I know the original Wii is region locked. I know that because of Xenoblade Chronicles. We had a discussion about this over Twitter not too long ago.
Yeah, I know that you can, on the PS3 at least, you can register a Japanese PSN account and then download those Japanese games from the Japanese store onto your American console and play them. I don't know if the discs are region locked or not. But
The first time that I actually ran into region locking, and I'm sure there's a way to get around this. I know there's all kinds of like things you can do, like ripping and reburning, and at least you could change regions of disk drives and things like that. But the first time I ran into this was years and years ago. But I mean not forever ago, because they were DVDs, but. So one of my friends had gotten me the complete Firefly series on DVD, and he didn't realize that he had purchased the PAL region.
Oh man,
version. So the different regions. There's like I don't know all the names, but I know that PAL, that's the European region, right?
Yeah.
And then NTSC is the Americas region, and I think, isn't there just a Japan region?
I think it's NTSC
J
or something like that. Yeah. It's just NTSC J.
Yeah, and from what I understand, and this could be me just completely blowing smoke or lying. I'm not lying, but I think the difference between NTSC and NTSC-J is just that it's arbitrary. It's not like a technical difference, because if we're talking about like video between PAL and NTSC, I think NTSC is like 29.97 frames per second, and PAL is like 25 frames per second.
Oh,
so that's an actual. Yeah. That's why they started, because. At least this is a very cursory understanding, and I've not done any real reading or research on it, but that film in the United States was done, when it got standardized to any degree at 29.97 frames per second. And when it got standardized in Europe, mainly the UK probably, it was standardized, or maybe France, I don't know, but it got standardized at 25 frames per second.
Yeah.
Which is, and I think that Japan, like the NTSC-J, is also 29.97 frames per second. And so it's an arbitrary difference of, it's not America's. There's no technical difference. But these same regions, like the PAL, NTSC regions, whatever, they made their way over into the video game industry when disc-based games were coming out. PlayStation, obviously PlayStation 2, GameCube, all that kind of stuff, and which makes no sense, right? Because if it's just a technical format difference in how fast a projector has to run, or not just how fast a projector has to run, just by what the kind of film, what the film's like, it makes sense that, okay, well, we have to make this distinction. But when it's like literally the same kind of hardware running out into the same kind of output device, it makes no sense. It becomes arbitrary again.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate thing that organizations have done with these different regions is a bunch of weird stuff. You see different release dates for different regions. Now, that may not be directly related to region locking per se, but generally releases are based upon region and the region of, PAL region, TSC, and I know they separate other countries too, but when there's no real technical reason for that now, and I mean, you get things like different versions per region, and this kind of goes back to the conversation we had several weeks ago about Fatal Frame 5, where in the NTSC-J region, so the Japan region, European region and America's region all got different games, which is, I mean, they weren't vastly different, and for the most part, it's the same game. But why? I mean, I understand different regions, literally, regions of society will have different standards of society and things that they feel are okay or not okay, and I understand you want to address that, but. Yeah. The whole thing is the media is what the media is. Anyway, that's getting way off topic. But back to region locking, a lot of it has to do, as I understand it, with terms of contracts. That if you're going to publish for this system, you have to do these things differently for these different reasons. And theoretically, it's supposed to be better for business, else they wouldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
But it's weird when, for example, let's go back to Xenoblade Chronicles, when you have a game that was at first not even released in the Americas region. Mm-hmm. Eventually, later it was, but it wasn't. They didn't print a whole lot because they knew they weren't going to sell a whole lot.
Yep.
And then now people like myself, and I know you say, well, they have the new 3DS version, whatever. I mean, putting that aside, we're just talking about the Wii version. Yeah. People like me who really want to get a hold of that game, I can't go buy one of these, region-free versions or some version that's not made for my region and play it because my console's region locked.
Yeah.
And so I have to pay, instead of paying like $40, $50 for this game, I have to go find somebody and pay $120 for this game. And it makes no sense.
And that's the case with so many games, like NES games that are worth $1 bajillion. If you buy the Famicom version, which is, pretty much the exact same game, except it has a Japanese text on it, it costs significantly less than the US version, which that's actually changing now, because people have caught on to that.
Right.
But yeah, and it's always really intrigued me sometimes and that's kind of what made me want to get a Super Famicom or get a Japanese Sega Saturn. Just some of the games that you can find, or variation of games that you can find on that Japanese console versus the American console. Like, and this is actually why I got a Super Famicom, but I have not purchased this game yet, and I've had the thing for like 2 years now. Is the Back to the Future game for Super Famicom that never came out over here, but
really,
have you not seen it?
I have no idea about this.
It is the only... Well, okay, so the Telltale game, Back to the Future game that came out recently is a good game. But pushing that aside, there have been a ton of, cash-out kind of games for Back to the Future. And this is really the only good one. It's actually in... AVGN did an episode on Back to the Future games. And this was... he like found it at the end, and I can't make a face on this podcast because it's audio only, but he made the most hilarious like this is my dreams have come true kind of face. But yeah, it's one of those games.
Is that the one that is just like a platformer and like he like runs really fast?
He has he's on a hoverboard, and
okay,
it looks like one of those Super Nintendo lighthearted platformer kind of games.
Okay. I have seen gameplay in this. I do know what you're talking about now.
So yeah, that's on my list of things to get. I haven't gotten it yet, but hopefully someday. Also, like just random things like Mega Man X3 came out for Saturn in Europe and Japan, but not here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it did.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I've been wanting to pick that up, but and
then like Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of deal. Let's see what else. There was one other one that I was thinking of. Oh, Clockwork Knight. This is actually interesting. In Japan, so here Clockwork Knight 1 and 2 happened. 2 is actually, and this is for Saturn, if you didn't know. So Clockwork Knight 1 and 2 for Saturn. It's like a 2-parter game. It basically, the game stops and it's like to be continued, and it's like,
what?
Freaking what?
Oh man!
And so the second one comes out, whatever. And so it literally is a 2-part game. In order to play the whole game, you have to have both games. And I guess this is kind of an early version of like episodic gaming, like how they do now, how they release episode 1, episode 2.
The difference being though that the episodes are generally cheaper.
That's exactly right.
This is like
these
full
are
price games,
full retail bumping games. But actually in Japan they released a version that's both of the games put together, so that's cool. So I don't know, like over here that kind of stuff never happened, but over there I feel like they got more creative with that kind of stuff, and
yeah,
I think that's
well,
cool.
I mean, like gamer culture in Japan has been, like video gamer culture in Japan has been vastly, or at that point was much more vastly grown and ingrained than in America. Yeah. And even to this point you can argue that it still is, right?
And the games would come out like months before over there, and I always was so freaking jealous that I could not play Super Mario 64 yet, but it's been out in Japan for a year.
Right. Which, I mean, I understand that from a business point of view, but that's one of those things that's just not going to fly anymore, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like they get, a few days at best apart from each other.
It's nowhere near what it used to be. Like, quite literally, Sonic Adventure came out the year before it came out here.
Yeah.
And, if you wanted to play it early, you could import it.
Well, and the thing is, luckily, the market's kind of forcing them to step away from that practice because everybody knows now immediately when games are released in Japan.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, I want to play that game now.
Exactly.
And it's like, people are not going to have the attention span. There's so many great games being made and so many even just good enough games being made that they're not going to be caring about the same game, a year later. I mean, unless it's like a super, super huge, franchise, like another Mario game. But even then, it's in Nintendo's best interest to just go ahead and bring it out here to get those sales while the hype's up, instead of having to re-hype later.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I really... I understand that there were, production issues that originally caused things like region locking or slow rollout. But I really don't understand what the point of it is now, because and then there's the argument that somebody will buy the Japanese version on eBay for their kid or their niece or nephew and give it to them, and then what do you know, they just bought Final Fantasy 18 and it's all in Japanese. Right. Some games it doesn't matter. I mean, but these days it matters to some degree. But something like that, like a real role playing game, it's like you're screwed if you can't read Japanese. And then there's, like multi-language releases now. I mean, especially like PC, right? You download it and you can switch to whatever language you want.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, previously I could see that affording them more production time, but at this point they can't afford that because there's so much competition from like the indie market and just all kinds of other developers, right? And independent publishers even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there have been some fantastic games that have come out recently that have been made by one human being.
Oh, yeah.
Axiom Verge being one of those.
Dude, I actually saw some gameplay of that the other day, and I'm like, that looks awesome. Yeah. I really want to play that game now.
I have a Steam key if you want it.
Oh, dude. Don't even play.
I'm serious.
Man, I will take that.
Sweet.
Yes, that would be most appreciated.
It's been done, Internet. It's been done here.
Man. Oh, I need to make a video of that, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is a great game. Dude did the music even.
Are you serious?
Yeah, the music is freaking good in the game. He did the music, he did the art, he did, the programming.
Dude, that's incredible.
One bro, my man, made that game.
Man. I can't even.
Yeah,
I can't even.
Exactly.
I think like sometimes, I've probably got enough of the skills to do most of the stuff aside from the graphical assets.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like Yeah,
Unfortunately, you and I are in the same boat there, so we could be a powerhouse in everything except for the graphics department.
Right. I mean,
that is a
we just need a
special skill, dude. Like,
totally.
I
Absolutely.
did some of the perler art, the beads.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
You put all the beads on a little grid thing, and then you iron them, and then pixel art.
Yeah.
And just looking at some of that stuff up close, especially the 16-bit sprites, it's unbelievable. Like, you look at it up close,
yeah.
it's like, this doesn't freaking look like anything. And then you
Yeah,
pull it out, it's like, this is Chrono, and he has, his hair doing this thing, and this is like a shadow from his hair. It's just, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, people spend like days and days on that stuff. It's like, like when you're actually designing it, and it's like, man, I can't even imagine.
Yep.
You get real good at it, I'm sure, but that's got to be a passion,
Exactly.
We gotta meet up with somebody or get hooked up with somebody who's like all about the graphics, and then
yes, we do.
We'll make some video games.
The movie,
yeah.
The game.
Yeah. Oh man. So, I mean, I can't help but think that region locking just in general is a bad thing. It hurts way more than it helps. I should have silenced my phone before this. My apologies for that. But
you're a communicator.
Yeah, exactly. My what's it called in Metal Gear Solid? Oh, jeez, whatever.
Yeah. And I've always been jealous. Random. I've always been jealous of Famicom cartridges because they're so much more. Even the console itself is so much more compact. The cartridges are so much more compact.
It had to be. People don't have a lot of space in Japan.
Yeah, exactly. The only thing I don't like about it is that the controllers are wired into the console.
Yeah,
that's kind of bogus. But yeah, the cartridges are like just. I mean, if you've never opened an NES cart before, the game is not the entire cartridge. It's a very small little board that's in the cartridge.
It's tiny. Like, I was so surprised the first time I saw that. Yeah. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
A Famicom cartridge. The Famicom cartridge has 60 pins versus the NES has 72 pins. But the actual Famicom cartridge is the size of the board, basically. Yeah. So it's and it doesn't have that goofy mechanism where you push the cartridge in, then you push it down, and all that junk.
Which I don't understand why they thought that was cool, because, like...
I don't remember. I've read up on it before, and there was a reason for that. They were trying to be fancy with something, but I feel like that's like the ultimate form of region locking. Well, if you put your Famicom cartridge in here, it's going to eat it.
Right. Exactly. Well, luckily you could take the top off and just ride like that.
Yes. But yeah. And I mean, you can get converters for these cartridges and stuff like that. Or like the Super Nintendo, how I was talking about earlier. I'm pretty sure you can use a Game Genie to play the Super Famicom cartridge without having to, modify your console or anything.
Yeah.
And I think the Mega Drive versus the Genesis is the same thing. The cartridge is a little different.
Naturally.
So yeah.
Well, maybe it is going away. That's my hope, is that, whenever a new game comes out, there's one release date. It's released all around the world. You get all the languages. So if you want to learn French by playing through, Persona 8, you can.
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting, at least. But yeah, it's. I think in general, though, most people are really on board against it, because I mean, it doesn't benefit consumers at all, and in no way does it benefit consumers. So I think it's just a weird way of price fixing in multiple places around the world. I really think that's what it is, and it's just I don't like that.
I just looked this up, and the PS3 is not region locked. But there are some, but there are some high def. There's a high def catch and I'm not going to read this entire article on the live podcast, but yeah, apparently there's a catch with something, but it is not region locked, so you could play a European game on your Japanese PS3 or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's a thing then. That's cool. I mean, hopefully it'll all get that way. I mean, I would, man. I mean, it hasn't ever really hit me especially hard except for Xenoblade Chronicles. Because I was actually going to buy that when it came out in the US, but it was one of those things when I found out that it was going to come out here, I was like, sweet. And then I never found out like when the actual release date was. And so I just wasn't even following it. And then, from there, I realized, too late. Oh, yeah, I wanted to get Xenoblade Chronicles. Yep. And then I look, and I'm like, I don't want it that badly. I mean, and I do appreciate that they brought it out on the new 3DS, but the problem is they're just using that to sell the console or the handheld, right? And because you have to have the new one. You have to have the new one to play that game.
I can't play it on mine. And I've seen a video of the new 3DS loading, like Smash Brothers, loading Smash Brothers versus the 3DS that I have loading Smash Brothers, and it is like almost instantaneous on the new one, and then on the old one, it actually has to sit there and load and spin its discs or whatever the F it's doing in there. Gears are cranking.
Yeah.
Steam pistons doing their thing.
That's right. It looks so sleek on the outside, but you take off the cover and it's like steampunk innards.
Right.
Oh man, it's all clockwork. All the way down, it's all clocks.
Another note, while we were discussing this, I looked at the PS4, and the PS4 is not region locked either. However, you cannot use US downloadable content on a Japanese game.
What?
So
I see.
You would have to
see.
have a Japanese PSN account to download stuff for it. So
that makes. I mean that. It still sucks, but whatever. I mean, why? It's like, why? It doesn't make sense.
Right. At that point, it's like, come on, guys, really?
Yeah.
But I guess, if they have separate servers or something, then that's...
Yeah, but I mean, how hard is it to make an option to say, hit the Japanese servers, hit the US server? And why should it be different? The languages should all be bundled in with the game anyway, and then just you switch out whatever language you want to use.
That.
I mean, I say this like I'm ever going to buy something from the Japanese PSN store or PlayStation store, but, I know people who would, right?
Yeah.
I don't know people personally. I know of people, put it that way. So I'm going to get pissed off for them.
Right. Yeah,
these people who aren't even acquaintances.
I've seen people recommend retro games that have only come out like on the Japanese PSN store, but they have not come out on the US store. Yeah. And so, you can get that game in the Japanese store or, pay $300 to get an NES card or something, whatever the case might be. But yeah.
Well, anyway, that's region locking. It's not great, and hopefully it's going away. Any other thoughts on that topic, sir?
Negative. It'll be interesting to see that go away because I feel like that was a huge part of my childhood, was just like being so jelly of everything that came out in Japan, and curse you, Japan! I can't play this game for another year.
Hey, it's not Japan's fault. It's the companies who own
exactly
put this stuff out. But yeah, I feel you, dude. Totally. All right, so we got one other topic to talk about, and we're finally bringing back our segment, Top Tier. Tier. Mr. Hammer K, what is tonight's top tier topic?
The top tier topic for tonight is 90s LCD handhelds, such as Tiger games.
Yes. So, I don't know about you, but I had a ton of these things. Like, a ton.
What? Honestly, I didn't have too many of them, but I remember I played the ones that I had all the time.
Yeah. And most of them sucked. Like,
that's so true.
really bad. Like it's one of those things. So okay, so and here's our phrase that we always say for those of you who don't know: if you've never seen a Tiger handheld game or any of these LCD handheld games, I mean, you can harken back to like Game and Watch games, right? Like all the old Nintendo games, like Octopus and what are the other ones? Oh, there's so many of them. I can't remember any of them now.
Like Mr. Game and Watch.
Yeah, like all the things, like if you like the old game on Game Boy, Game and Watch Gallery, all the games that are on that, like Oil Panic or Oil Fire or whatever that one is.
Yeah.
And, those are good games, though. Don't get me wrong; those are actually really fun to play. But a lot of these 90s LCD handhelds, what they tried to do is capitalize on another brand, right? So they brought out, Ninja Turtle ones, and they brought out, I know there was a Mortal Kombat one that I had, believe it or not. And
that's awesome.
there's just so many of these things. Bucky O'Hare, and there was a Sonic the Hedgehog one. There was a Michael Jordan versus Larry Bird one. There was, I think there was even an NBA Jam one at one point.
Just say it, and it is one. I mean,
yeah, pretty much anything from the 90s.
Yeah,
and there were Barbie ones even, and it was like I did not have a Barbie one. Not that I don't even know what you would do in a Barbie one. Actually, I don't even know what you did in most of them, to be quite honest.
So in preparation for this topic, I rewatched the AVGN did an episode of Tiger handhelds, like maybe last year, the year before last, or something like that.
Oh man, I've got to go see that. I haven't even seen that.
Oh
one.
Man, it's great. And there are just so many random games, like Jurassic Park. Any movie that came out, any television series that was around, dinosaurs. That 90s television dinosaurs. There was one for that. Full House. There was one for Full House where you were just a human being. I think it was Michelle. But it was just like some random game where things are flying left and right in a hallway or something, and you're trying to dodge. He said like it's pretty much just like they looked at like a picture of something and then created a game from it. Like Mega Man, there is a Mega Man game for it. Mega Man has a gun, and he can run out of ammo in this game.
What? Yeah.
Essentially, they just looked at the cover of the original Mega Man and created a Tiger handheld game.
Oh my goodness! So what they're like these little plastic. I don't know how you would call it. Just like it's like generally they were rectangular, like, and kind of thick, and they had like buttons on both sides. So like they had circles on like the bottom right and bottom left where like you could control the game, and a lot of times there was like a D-pad on the left. I mean, and these controls were terrible, obviously.
They were all freaking different, by the way. They were all different. Like you'd get
every single one.
Yeah, and you'd have like a D-pad on one side, and then it might say like up is do something, down is do something else. It's not even what you like control the character or what you would think it is. It's just like some random thing. It's just like they put like a D-pad and then like a big button on the side or something and said, okay, we're going to assign all these different things, different functions, regardless of what you think they're going to be.
Exactly. And so the screen part of the game, it was just like a static background. So it really was just like a picture in the background. And then it would have, little black LED pieces formed together like people in different positions. And so like it would move around. You can make it move around sometimes depending on what the game was and what you were doing. And obviously they all had different objectives. Those were like the Tiger handhelds. And there were also other LCD handhelds. The ones that I'm thinking in particular that I know I had were the Ninja Turtles one and the Bucky O'Hare one, which were, those two in particular were like longer. So they were like tall, and they were, I don't know, kind of shaped like the Federation logo, like sort of. It's hard to explain. It was like an A almost, and like you could wrap your hands around the sides, and they were like carved in on the back a bit.
Yeah.
And those games I think were actually a little bit better, if I recall, but still not awesome. And it was one of those things that I never had a Game Boy when I was younger, but I would get tons of those LCD handhelds, and I was always thinking that the next one was going to be better, and it never was.
Those were so interesting to me because do you know when those first came out?
I don't actually at all.
Live Googling.
Yeah. And the funniest things I remember that I had a Sonic the Hedgehog one, and it was like, that was just so weird.
Which one did you have? Was it a big
there are
one?
multiple ones? No, I think it was a smaller one.
Was it a little yellow one?
That's possible. It's been so long I don't even remember. I'd have to look it up, but man.
Yeah, I had a Sonic one that I got it from Sega Ages, the Sega, like Sega's Nintendo Power back in the day.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's actually news to me. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, we could talk about gaming magazines at some point. That would be a good top tier topic.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Man, yes.
Anyway, they had like you could get, back in the proof of purchase days where you'd get like some kind of deal with whatever your VHS or your magazine or whatever, and then you could save up these points and then get something. They always had this part in the back of the magazine where you could pick out some kind of something they had in there, and then send in $900 for shipping and handling, and it's yours. And they had a Sonic little Tiger handheld kind of deal, and it was I have it somewhere. I need to find it, but I think it was just like you fighting Robotnik.
Yes, that's the one I had.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it wasn't exclusive to the magazine then. It was just some random one.
Okay.
But yeah.
Or unless that was like a limited edition that you got.
I don't know. I think I looked it up on eBay not too long ago, and it was retarded expensive.
Are you kidding me? Oh, man, I know I probably just threw that thing away at some point.
Dude, man, this is something that I've been kind of wanting to get into collecting recently, because they're not too expensive. They're kind of at that point right now where, you can get a lot of them for, $10 or something like that. Occasionally you'll find one that's maybe like $30 or something.
Right.
Just because it's, quote, rare, unquote. But yeah, there are just so many interesting games. And
interesting in the sense of, wow, they made a game.
Right, and it's not like that they're even really that good or anything. But and then you got the next level of them, which were the watches. Did you have any of the watches?
I had the Star Fox watch.
Did you really?
I still do, actually.
Oh. That's actually pretty uncommon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That was on a Retro Liberty episode recently. They found one at someone had one at a gaming convention.
Oh man.
Yeah, they got it for $20, which was a steal apparently.
That's crazy. Like, yeah, I have one, and my brother has one, so there are two.
Wow.
In my family.
That's cool. But yeah, there's that. I think the Sonic one was a watch. I don't remember.
Maybe. I know that there is a Legend of Zelda watch, because when I got the Star Fox watch, I was obviously really young. I was trying to decide between getting that or the Legend of Zelda watch. So I thought that was pretty crazy.
Looking at this on eBay right now. Let me go to sold listings.
Oh no, I don't want.
$38.
Wow, that's crazy.
With the box, $65.
I have the box.
Are you serious?
Yeah, oh yeah. I always kept it in the box.
That's awesome.
It's like this big plastic box. You can
open up. This one has the price tag on it still. It says $19.99. But somebody bought it for $65.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Man, people love stuff like that. I'm surprised. I am surprised that it's quite that high, though. That's crazy. Like, I figured, it would be about original price, maybe a little bit more. But man, like 3 times, then? That's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy how some things really hold their value. Like, even regardless of if, they have the box or not. It's...
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things where at the time, all that kind of stuff was like, oh, that's just toys. And now it's not just toys, right? I mean, it's nostalgia, of course, for people like us who grew up with it. But it's also... curiosities for younger generations. They're like, wow, there was a whole bunch of crazy stuff that nobody's ever heard of, and it's so different than what I'm used to. It's like, how is this a thing? It's like us and stuff from like the 70s or 60s where it was like, I mean, not quite the 60s, but maybe late 60s and in the 70s. Not that I was really into stuff like that, but there are a lot of people our age who really got into let me put it this way, like in my high school and in, when I was growing up where I was, a lot of people did get into like 70s type stuff. Whereas like now kids, a while back kids were in like 80s stuff, and I think it's transitioning over into 90s stuff now, which is getting really weird for me.
Right. But exactly.
But I mean, and it's always like that. I think that, whenever somebody's born, it's like, whenever they become like a teenager, like 2 decades prior is like what's coming back in style, or like everybody's throwing back to that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I think this is just part of that at this point, at least. Yeah. And it'll probably rotate out, and then it'll probably maintain the current value, because after that decade is no longer cool or whatever, it's still, it's much older, right? And the fact that you still have it, if it still works, if it's still got the box, is that much more of an impressive thing. Yeah. Or rare thing.
Man, I'm just ready for NES games to start going back down, because good grief.
It's not going to, man. It's not. Because all it's going to happen is more people, population explosion, right? People having, more people on Earth, those people having kids, and those kids getting into video games, and a good percentage of those kids who are into video games getting into retro video games, because, it's a thing. Exactly. It's weird that like retro is like its own genre now. Yeah. Right? So because it is, because people make new games that are like retro. Very good games, obviously, as we've talked about before. So it's only going to get worse, man. That's my prediction. Put it that way. I feel like it's only going to get worse as far as like prices on the things that like you and I would really like to go pick up.
Right. Exactly.
But the thing is, like, eventually Nintendo's got to give in. Some of these companies have to give in and start just like making carts again. They've got to, because there's like too many people that are going to want this stuff, and that's just going to be a market that you can't ignore forever, I guess. I would think, but maybe they can. Or maybe I'm overestimating the amount of people who will actually be into the physical nature of retro games, and they just want to, play everything. They want to buy everything and play it on an emulator, or like eShop stuff or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people don't like having a bunch of old consoles. They would rather play it on whatever they have hooked up to their TV right now,
or their phone. Yeah. Which is unfathomable to me, why anybody would want to play something like Super Mario Brothers even on their phone. Like, a little bit just to kill time, like if you're like used to the game, but like that being your first experience with the game, I cannot even imagine. Yeah, I cannot.
The touchscreen control thing, unless a game is made to have touchscreen controls, I feel like the whole virtual control deal where you have like a D-pad and a button or two or whatever pop up on the sides of the screen, it does not feel right. No. Although what I do is I've got a tablet, and I've got one of those adapters where it goes into the micro USB slot, and then it's a USB female plug.
So, and I've got one of the USB like Super Nintendo type controllers, and I plug that in, and I use that with an emulator on the tablet, and that's awesome, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because like the controller's pretty good. I mean, it's not as good as a real Super Nintendo controller, but it's like 85-90% there, and it's like awesome to be able to just play those games like that and not have to get out all the wires and hook up the system and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
It's still not exactly the same. I mean, it's emulators are extremely close, and it's super fun to play, but it's never the same kind of feeling as really sticking that cartridge in the console, turning the console on, and just really playing.
Oh yeah, I've definitely had people say, why are you buying that game? You can just play it on emulator. I was like, I'm aware.
Yeah,
I've been down that path before.
And I mean, even aside from like the questionable legal state of emulation, it's like, sometimes it's cool to see it on a shelf, right? It's like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, okay, you can just buy some 50-cent cart and print the label for the game and then put it up there, and it's like, but it's not the game. It's
right.
like, yeah, you should do that. Like,
exactly.
on your shelf, like print off like Little Samson and like get one of the dip switch carts and print off Nintendo World Championships. And
there's actually somebody on Etsy that you basically say, hey, I want a reproduction cartridge of this game, whatever, and they don't do it to try to like scam somebody thinking it's the
right. They're
game.
like, this is a reproduction. You're buying a reproduction. Know that now.
They enjoy that. They think of that as like a work of art. It's like, hey,
do they do the box is the question.
Some of them do. Some of them. This
awesome.
one that I was looking at does not do the box, but they.
I need a link of somebody who does the box too, because I may be ready to spend some money if that's the case.
They do basically any NES game that you want. They have some kind of board that they will put the ROM on, and then they will make the cartridge and then label and whatever. And all the reviews have been positive. So yeah, I don't know. And they're $50.
Oh, yeah, that's a little on the high side. I mean, it's a lot of manual effort. I understand that, and it like you said, it's art. You're paying for art at that point. But that's cool though. I'm glad that somebody's doing it. I just wish that it were being done on a scale that we could take advantage of, economy of scale.
Yeah.
But I mean, then again, I don't want to, put out anybody who's doing it, as a labor of love. That's kind of sad too, that there are people doing that, and then that would really put them basically out of business. Yeah. Well, and not necessarily, because I mean, they're publishers who would have to be on board with Nintendo or somebody else doing it. So I could see publishers not wanting to do it, and then they could just do the ones of publishers who don't want to do it.
Yeah, but it's like some of those companies don't even exist anymore, and it's just.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's not kind of, it's really weird, like what's legal, what's not, but I mean, I know lots of people want to keep it above board, and I don't think that paying, $6 to $10, $5 to $10 for a game digitally is really a way to sate the desire of that particular market.
Yeah.
I mean, like for example, I bought Adventure of Link, Legend of Zelda 2, or Zelda 2, whatever it says on this, on eShop to play it. And side note, that game's hard as crap, but I would love to have the cart for that. I really would, and I know it's not super expensive, but. And it's only going to get more expensive because it's going to become more rare. People are going to lose them even now, or they're going to break, or there's just going to be too many people who want it, and it's just going to get more expensive. And it would be nice to have that option, down the line when I really am feeling the nostalgia hit me more so than I am now to be able to pick that up. But
yeah, it's really interesting games that, like NES games that are not rare, like Contra. Is not a rare game, but it's expensive because people buy it and they keep it.
Totally.
They don't sell it. They don't get rid of it. Yeah. They keep that game, so it becomes hard to find because not only is it a really good game that everybody wants to begin with, but
Yeah.
stores don't have it. It's not really on eBay as much as you would think.
Totally. And I mean, that's one of those games where, like, people working in like a shop that deals with like retro stuff, if that employee wanted that game and it came in, he's going to get that. He's going to buy it immediately when it comes in. Nobody else is going to get that opportunity to get it.
Yep.
So, yeah, and man, speaking of Contra, that's an amazing game. We should talk about that sometime.
We should play that game.
Oh,
we should
dude.
figure out a way to play that game.
Oh, man, I don't know if I can do 2-player Contra. I might kill you. Or myself, one or the other. Oh, jeez. We got way off topic here, by the way.
Yes, we did. Tiger Handhelds, ladies and gentlemen.
Tiger Handhelds, brought to you by Nintendo cartridges that aren't being made anymore. Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to collect Tiger Handhelds. I think that would be a very interesting thing to collect.
I may be able to find some for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I threw them all out or my parents did, but
yeah, I know I do not personally have any right now, unless they're. I mean, I know they're probably at my parents' house in some random box somewhere floating around.
Yeah.
But I never really had that many as a kid. I had the Sonic one.
Yeah.
I got that Gargoyles cartoon, that 90s cartoon Gargoyle. I had that. And these games were so funny because, you'd go to like the Tiger Handheld section of the toys and they just had one for everything. And if you were Christmas shopping for a kid, it's like, oh, this is something little boys like. This is a show that little boys like to watch. I'm going to buy this video game. And
it's an important distinction that it wasn't generally in the electronics sections of these stores. It was in the toys section.
Yep. Like anyone could walk over there and grab a game from anything and, that's that.
Yep.
But yeah, I had that Gargoyles game. I had probably some other ones that I can't even remember. I got I guess it was Nintendo that released them. I don't know if Tiger made them or Nintendo, whatever. But it was small. It looked like a Game Boy, but it had like Game and Watch games, and it had like Donkey Kong Jr. was the one that I had.
Oh, okay.
So that was cool.
Yeah. Oh, another one that I had. This wasn't a Tiger, so it wasn't like that, like standard form factor.
Uh-huh.
But I had a Ghostbusters handheld LCD game, and it was strange because it was like really thin, and the game part of it was at the bottom, and there's this huge plastic part at the top that just had like the Ghostbusters logo on it.
Yeah.
And another strange part was that it had like this metal kick out stand on the back of it, so that you could just like set it up like a picture frame. But it didn't really make sense why you would do that other than for display purposes, because like you couldn't really play it like that. Yeah. So man, that just hit me, that memory of having that too. That game was actually kind of fun. I mean, relative to like all the other Tiger games. Yeah. But yeah, that was weird because, and it was different too because like the Tiger games all took like AA batteries, and this thing took like like a coin battery, like a not a watch battery, bigger than that, but like a what are they, CR230 whatever? I don't know, I can't ever remember.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. The Saturn takes the same battery for
the memory.
Yeah, for saving games.
Yeah.
CR2032 or something like that.
Right. Also, the Roland JP8000 keyboard takes that as well for saving its patches. And I only know that because I had one of those at one point that the battery was dead, and I bought it on eBay, obviously, because that's an old keyboard. It's one of the synths from the heyday of trance in the 90s.
Right.
And it was like the keyboard that came out with like the supersaw waveform, so like that real detuned stuff that like started in trance, and then people really started abusing like in hardcore stuff. Yeah. That's the reason I got it, and I honestly wish I hadn't sold it. But when I bought it, the previous owner did not tell me that the battery was dead, and I got it. I started programming. I'm like, heck yeah, dude, this sounds awesome. And then I saved my patch, and I'm like, awesome. And then I turn it off. I come back the next day, and it's like gone. I'm like, oh no, no,
That's terrible.
yeah. And that one was really terrible because you had to take the entire keyboard apart to replace it too.
Ugh.
Yeah, and so I was like, you know what? I'm not feeling like taking this keyboard apart, so I ended up selling it. It was not a big deal because like those keyboards are awesome in the sense that everybody still wants them. So I didn't really lose any money on the swap there. So that's pretty cool.
That's cool.
Man, that's another thing to talk about is like synths. Man, I need to buy me a real good synth because I don't have one at the moment.
Don't we all?
And, well, the thing is like, we use software. For those of you who don't know, we use software for all of our synthatory needs, synthesizing needs, and while that's really good, and obviously it sounds fantastic, I love it. There's something about having that physical synth where you can twist those knobs yourself and really dial it in, and it's a much more visceral feeling when you have that hardware versus the software. So
yeah. Just like with LSDJ programming synths, you don't really think about, what a synth, like what makes a synth until you're actually having to create some kind of patch. And changing little things about it to make it sound different or whatever.
Yeah, and then you have to really, if you can't get a good mental model of what the synthesis process is, you'll never be able to program synths. Yeah. I mean, and I say that as somebody who basically can't program synths. Right. I mean, I understand having a waveform, and I understand going through, different filters and whatnot, and attack, decay, sustain, release envelopes. But I don't know much about it other than what each of those things kind of does to the sound. There's some people who are, this is so crazy, man. There's some people who are like savants with that sort of stuff, where it's just like, it's like, that's like how their brain works now. It's like their brain is a synthesizer.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Or, they can hear one and then know exactly what it looks like.
That's so incredible to me, and this is so tangential, but I want to say this. That's why it really upsets me. And if you're one of these kinds of people, I'm sorry, but you piss me off. And I almost never say that about anything, although I feel it a lot. But this is something I'm going to say it about, because if you're one of these people who are like, electronic music takes no talent to produce, you obviously have never even attempted it, and you need to get off your high horse, because that is so far from the truth. Now, I will say, yes, you can just program your notes and stuff, but you can't, there's no make it sound good button. That does not exist.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
There's a button that exists that says make this sound decent and like everything else. But there's no button that says make this sound good.
The decent button.
Right. And I will admit I've used that decent button once or twice in my life. So but it's like, oh my goodness, guys, like seriously, it takes actual talent and skill to be able to produce good electronic music. Now, producing crappy electronic music, that's the same as anything, right? Producing anything crappily doesn't necessarily take any skill. So I could never get through an episode of our podcast without getting on at least one soapbox. Man, I need to order those things wholesale, dude. Right. From Costco or something.
Man, we just need to change the name of this podcast. It should just be like, for those of you who don't know soapbox.
Oh yeah, the OOTSB.
Yes, precisely.
All right. Well, anything else that you want to say about Tiger Handhelds or anything else in this particular conversation, Mr. Hammercake?
Just that I cannot believe that they survived so long, because I'm pretty sure that they were around before the Game Boy came out. I'm pretty sure.
That's crazy.
And the Game Boy came out, and the Game Boy, Game Gear, all that, and then they continued well on into the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I mean, there was
ridiculous.
Still a market for that.
And even with us all knowing that those games sucked, that market continued to be there because that's what this is full circle back to the first point I was making, is they just tie it in with a brand that people know and want to buy merchandise about or from. So,
yep,
it is pretty crazy. But the thing is, what's funny is, even if they still exist today, they don't. Cell phones surely would have killed them by now.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Oh man. All right, man. Well, this has been a good OOTPC, I think. What about you?
It has. I support this opinion.
Awesome.
Actually, it's more of a fact, really.
Oh, that's right. It's just a fact. What is that? Oh, that's from there's this video out on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen it, go see it. It's what is it? It's that Star Wars video for like oh crap, man, this is so dumb. Now I can't even remember. I think it's like Star Wars A Lost Hope. It's like spoofing like the prequels.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
This has been like around forever. I think it's called Star Wars A Lost Hope. So go search that on YouTube. It's hilarious. But yeah, so I think this is a good place to end the podcast. But before we get out of here, yes, we are a band. We do music. We are working on some things potentially. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not going to say. But we do music. You can check out our music at videogamemetal.com. That'll take you to our Bandcamp page. Or if you're of the SoundCloud variety, you can go to soundcloud.com/videogamemetal. Yes, if you, in fact, are of the SoundCloud variety. Besides that, we are out on the internet pretty much anywhere /order of tier. So if you go to twitter.com, facebook.com, youtube.com, instagram.com, and vine.co, all of those sites /order of tier, you will find our presence on that specific social media site. Yep. So check us out. If you want to tweet at us, please feel free. If you want us to speak about something in a future podcast or our live hangout on air called Order More Tires, which will be coming up this next Monday and every other Monday, you can tweet at us with the hashtag #TalkToTier. So we will be looking out for that. But thank you so much for listening to this episode number 009 of the OOTPC. That man over there across the inner tubes is Mike the Hammer K. Klodzinski. I am the Game Mage. Thanks so much, and we'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye, Internet.